Hi, this is KL Wells, and welcome to Thriving While Loving an Addict. I'm very excited to bring to you today Waylon Hirst, who is 2 decades as a senior geologist in Minnesota, and he is the spouse of Jen Hirst, who is 11 years clean and sober. Congratulations, Jen. Devoted husband, devoted dad of two, and then spends his off time in the outdoors. He's a fisherman and a hunter and a camper and a hiker and very much kindred spirit to what I love to do in my free time too. So I'm deeply grateful for Wayland being willing to have this conversation with me. This is his first ever sharing his side of the story. And it's deeply personal and it's raw and it's real and it's super thoughtful. So welcome to today's show, Wayland. So welcome back to the podcast, Thrive While Loving an Addict. KL Wells here, and I am with Waylon Hirst, who is the spouse of a guest I had a number of months ago, Jen Hirst, who is a sobriety coach. And we had such a great conversation, and I wanted to know, what's the other side of the story? What's Waylon's journey in all of this? Jen's been sober for about 10 years now. So we're kind of asking him to dust off the cobwebs a little bit here and think back to the early days a little bit, but then really kind of how has his journey been in the midst of all of this when you love somebody who's dealing with alcoholism or substance use disorder. So I'm going to ask you to do just a little intro as to like who you are in the world and then a little bit about how you guys met and how the journey started.
Yeah, so I'm from very small community, rural northern Minnesota, and grew up on a small hobby farm, small school, you name it. Everything was small from where I grew up. Ended up going to college, and through some mutual friends I went to school with, met my now current wife, Jennifer, at all places, at a beer dabbler, at a drinking event because I guess that's what we did when we were in the college years. So yeah, interesting looking back on our journey to think that that's where we all started.
Right. How long did you guys date? Do you remember when you realized that she had a problem with alcohol?
Yeah, good question. So we started dating, shoot, almost 18 years ago now, I think.
Hmm.
And a lot of our dating, whether I realized it or not, did revolve around drinking,
Mhm.
going to bars or meeting up with friends and being social. And I guess I never really thought about it. It was just the norm for us at that time. It was
Mhm.
understood whether we were going to school or working, like, yep, we will work Monday through Friday, and then Friday night we'll probably go out with friends, and we probably will again on Saturday night because that's what we did. I guess I never thought anything of it for quite some time. There were probably points where she was trying to communicate it to me. She is my memory bank, so when it comes to dates and referencing back to things, I always have to ask her because I feel like her memory is better than mine. But I know there was definitely at least one occasion where she tried to let me know after we'd been dating for maybe a couple of years even
Mhm.
that I think I have a drinking problem, and it was so far from a consideration to my mind. I just kind of scoffed at it and like, you don't have a problem. Like, I've seen people that have problems, and you're fine. You're not one of them, right?
Them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I probably wasn't any help, but maybe I couldn't see the trees through the forest. I just wasn't paying attention to the
Mhm.
signs.
Mhm.
And yeah, but there were multiple occasions where she was trying to communicate it to me prior to us getting married in 2011.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know if I just didn't, maybe part of me just didn't want to acknowledge it because, like most people that drink, they like drinking buddies. And I knew at that point our relationship did revolve around it to a certain
Mhm.
extent, especially our
Mhm.
social life. And I was probably scared at how it may, how what we know as a relationship. And then we did get married, and very shortly after we got married, there was no hiding it anymore. Yeah, within a matter of a couple of weeks, it was like we need help,
Mm.
and yeah, that's when I guess we got the hard stuff out of the way to start
Mm-hmm.
our marriage first. It really tests your relationship out the gate, but
Well, so help me understand what was revealed, or what did you see within the first couple weeks that you're like, we do have a problem here?
oh yeah, it was very different than what I had noticed before. It was me going to work and coming home, and she was still in bed, or she was visibly intoxicated. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. And initially I was just like, you know what, wedding, it's an emotional high, and it's tough to come down from that, seeing being surrounded by all your loved ones and close friends. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, not a big deal. And it went on for a few days, and I'm just like, okay, well, tried just initially. I probably even had drinks with her, and just like, it's okay to feel sad and feel a lot of different emotions now. But as it got
Mm-hmm.
into a multi-week thing, and I'd come home and still in bed, and then we have two small dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell they hadn't been out. There would be feces on the floor and urination on the floor, and then she was getting much, much more intoxicated when I would come home, like to the point like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? Initially, I'm sure I was just mad, just didn't understand it, felt caught off guard, even though there was warning signs, and she was trying to communicate it prior to us getting married. But
Did
yeah,
you, so I'm wondering if you had a particular way that you saw alcoholism and she didn't fit in that box. Um,
sure. Yeah, I guess she just didn't fit up until that point of what I thought of as an alcoholic. I thought of someone that basically wakes up and starts drinking, and I thought of the person that you see, the sloppy drunk, even whether it's at the bar or at any sort of social encounter. I didn't consider the closet drunk necessarily.
mhm. Yeah, and I think for some of our listeners, that's a really important distinction, is that we have a notion about what we think alcoholism or substance use disorder looks like. And if it doesn't fit in what we think, then we dismiss it. And it can show up in a variety of ways, obviously.
Yeah, maybe it is the area that I grew up in, upper Midwest, rural, but I recall taking tests, or filling out questionnaires in high school or college, trying to assess who's got drinking problems or not.
Hmm.
And it was like, do you have one or two or three or four plus or five plus? And even I myself at that time, I scoffed at it. I was like, well, yeah, I'm not having a good time if I go out if it's not five plus. That's a silly question.
Right.
So maybe my own barometer was skewed to the heavier end of it anyway, which
Hmm.
was part of the reason why I wasn't seeing it, because maybe we fit into a bit of the upper Midwest stereotype of, uh,
Partying.
yeah. Sorry, I don't even recall the question. I just kind of got off on a tangent there.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, I think a lot of people find themselves in the same position. And quite frankly, when I was in college, we were drinking all the time. And knock on wood, I didn't have that gene. And so, I had the other side of the equation where I was dealing with people lots of times that I was involved with or in relationships with that were that did have a problem.
Yep,
Hmm.
and that's why it's difficult from our side to I can't put myself in those shoes, because I have an off switch, and I can have this many drinks, and then I can turn my switch off, and then I don't need to have a drink for a week or a month or a year, and it doesn't affect me. But as she would probably say, there is no off switch. It's
Hmm.
yes, I'll have another.
Hmm.
And whether they will have that another in front of you, or if that another is a wine bottle hidden behind the
Hmm.
closet, or
Hmm.
uh, I
Yeah.
just just remember how it drug me down and it affected me in a way I didn't expect, mistrust. But then it started to consume me where as soon as I'd come home and I would be like trying to smell her breath, or I would be checking her hiding places because
Mm-hmm.
she had promised me that morning she wasn't going to drink. So I wanted to make sure that she was holding up her end of the bargain. But she just got better at hiding it, and it was unrealistic looking back. That's unrealistic for me to think that or say that now, but how much it affected me and drove me crazy in ways that I don't even like to think back to. I'm not very proud of the way I acted back then either,
Mm-hmm.
as she was going through a very tough time and I was trying to make it up as I go and trying to throw mud at the wall and seeing what would work. And it didn't
Right.
feel like anything was working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who gets raised knowing how to deal with this? I mean, seriously, most of us that have it in our families are watching the crazy or the dysfunction take place in real time, and
Yeah.
lots of families don't get help. So, yeah, I mean, your story is very, um, I think, common, and you're trying to figure out, like, how do I help? But it takes on this, I need to monitor,
Yeah.
I need to make sure they're kind of living up to their agreement and so on and so forth. And then at some point, I'm assuming you kind of realize that, wow, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, and it didn't take long. I don't recall how soon it was, if it was 6 weeks or how 2 months, whatever it was. But then it
Mm-hmm.
was treatment, and of course I'm like, awesome, going to treatment. Like this is a magic bullet. This is
Mm-hmm.
definitely gonna fix
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I went to a program as well, being the significant other for us and how to manage it, which was helpful. I don't recall all the details of it at that time, but I know it help me as the significant other process a little bit, help me feel like I'm not alone. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people going through this. So
Mm-hmm.
as tough of a battle as I know she is fighting, I need to take care of myself too. And
Right.
that doesn't mean to leave her on an island, but um, yeah, the she went, I don't remember how many times she went into treatment. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
3. It could
Mm-hmm.
have been 4, but I know it started to feel like a broken record, and like I just felt like there was getting to be no hope. I remember one of the times when I basically just said, if I come home, and basically I just made an ultimatum and I drew a line in the sand. I said, next time I come home and I find a bottle or I smell it on you, like you can't live here with me. I remember saying that. That hurt. That stunk. Because then I did tell her she can't stay here, and she's like, "Well, where am I going to stay?" I'm like, "I don't know. You can't
Mm-hmm.
stay here anymore because this isn't working." And
Mm-hmm.
that was a pretty terrible feeling, thinking back, pretty helpless feeling.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember her calling numbers like shelter. She's like, "Where am I going to stay then?" And I just said, "I can't help you with that anymore."
Mm-hmm.
But um, yeah,
That takes a lot of courage.
yeah, it was not an enjoyable time. I think she would agree it was necessary because she was going to keep going on the path she was going down as long as I would keep allowing it to a certain extent. So, but yeah, it was a dark stage. It was good too. Now that we're on the other end of it, I'm very grateful for a lot of it, but it sure was a dark time in our relationship. And then she stayed with her parents for a period of time, I know, and they set similar guidelines, and it wasn't working so well there either. And I think maybe it was when she got pulled over with driving while intoxicated, or maybe it was right in that same timeline where um I think she would acknowledge she had her aha moment and said enough is enough, and and yeah, and slowly started crawling out and
Mm-hmm.
coming back and being the person that I fell in love with. So
Do you remember, like, when she whether it was the third or the fourth rehab, how long did it take you to kind of trust that this was gonna work? And I think partly too, I think like setting the boundaries around what works for you in terms of her sobriety. And then also, I mean, did you have were you mad, you know?
Yeah,
Um
sure. Sure,
yeah.
I was. I
Mm-hmm.
was mad because I felt like I was duped into a whole marriage. The
Mm-hmm.
relationship was a sham and the marriage was a sham. I'm like, what's real and what's not?
Yeah.
Trying to build a relationship on alcohol. Looking back, of course, that would be silly, but at that time, you know, besides that she was my spouse and I loved her, she was also my drinking buddy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now who are we? Like
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
needed to completely reinvent what we were. And that took time. It definitely took a lot of time, kind of figure out how to date again. To do dating things that did not revolve around drinking was challenging at first, but it was, yeah, it took a long time to build up the trust. I would say years. Yeah, it's definitely something. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, you're all better. I felt betrayed so many times, and I'd heard so many promises that
Right.
were not fulfilled that I think I'd be kidding you, or I'd be lying to myself. 4 or 5, many years, but time is the ultimate healer. That if you can keep proving to me that you got a handle on this now, and then I can trust you, and that I don't feel like I need to smell your breath or search around looking for hidden bottles. I don't know how long. It was a long time though. Probably
Yeah.
longer than I ever led her to believe because I didn't want to make her feel bad about it.
Sure. Yeah.
It did, we did get pregnant. Well, my son was born in 2014, so mid to late 2013. We got married in 2011, so it was a strong year and a half, if my math is right. And then I must have decided I must have decided, yeah, we weren't just built around drinking, and that we do have a lot in common, and that
Mm-hmm.
that spark was still there. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that she would probably say that once she became a mom or knew she was pregnant, that I think helped solidify
Mm-hmm.
if she did have any lingering thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
that I think that was the nail in the coffin, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. And I've talked to a number of women in particular that their children played a significant role in them getting clean or sober and staying. There's just
Yeah,
something about kids, that you want to be a better person for them.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm happy that she uses it as one of her whys, probably when she wakes up every day. It's her
Mm-hmm.
reason. I think that it's almost a mantra. Like I think she references that quite a bit. I know my why,
Mm-hmm.
she'll say. 4 little feet running around this house, getting to be
Yeah.
bigger feet. But yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
So, I'm curious as to what you learned about yourself in the midst of all of this.
You can't control people.
Mm-hmm.
You if you let trying to control someone or to watch all of their behaviors, it just drives you crazy, and you're no better off than the alcoholic is. You're in equally as bad spot, except
Mm-hmm.
your obsession is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, just learned maybe that reinvented who I was. And although I do think a lot of college age kids do come out of their fun partying days and probably
Mm-hmm.
don't hit it as hard as they used to, but maybe reevaluated my own relationship with alcohol. Thought to myself, yeah, it's I don't need to be um I don't need to be going out and having fun. Uh, or if we went out as a couple, to try to be mindful and respectful of what she has went through. I know she always said she doesn't mind. She didn't care if I drank in front of her, but I think I did my best to especially the first few years. And now just with having kids and, getting a little bit past those days, and now in our early phase, I don't have time for it, for alcohol. And I hear her and I listen to her, so it naturally rubs off on me, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, yeah, I don't have any time for it in my life. Generally speaking, that's not to say I won't have a toast with someone or a beer with an old friend now and then, but
Mm-hmm.
now a lot of times I find myself drinking the NA beverages that she might have on hand, doing other more productive things with my
Yeah.
time that are probably better for my body and mind.
Yeah. Um, I'm really curious because I think about what you did in terms of courage, and I guess two things are kind of rolling through my head is what compelled you to stay and where did that courage come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought of it as courage
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. Maybe it's my country roots, when maybe it's stubbornness, but I truly believe when you say I do, that you mean I do, and through thick and through thin, good times and
Mm-hmm.
bad. And I'm like, we got a lot of bad times up here up front, so we better have some good times on the backside of
Right,
this.
right, right.
Yeah, I just, as much as the thought did, maybe I spoke it to people. I said, this is it, or maybe this is the last time I'll file papers or something. I don't truly think I ever considered it, because I still knew I was in love with her and that we can get through this together, or for a period of time it meant we couldn't be together, for
Mm-hmm.
us to get to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a commitment streak on your part that is runs deep.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I don't like losing per se. I don't know. I felt committed, and I felt, the more I thought about it, maybe I started to realize that I was just as much at fault in this, maybe even trying to help her not realize the issue. So I think I felt at fault to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
that I was not, when she was reaching out for help, I was not helping. I was like, nah, I'll get another beer. We're good. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't us. So yeah, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, when you love someone, you love someone. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now years later, 10 years of her sobriety and being a sobriety coach and doing all the things that she's doing, where are you guys now? Where are you now in all of this? I think, when we talked just a little bit before we got on, it was like it was almost a distant memory.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I know there was that period of time, but at the same time, it could feel like it was a completely different life. It isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long. So, it, 10 years, some would say that isn't that long. Generally that's a fairly long period of time, but it could just so be like 100 years. Like, it feels so distant. Like, I don't wake up and think about it. I don't have bad dreams about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like, it's not that we would avoid the topic of conversation if it comes up, but it just doesn't, because it's not who we are. It doesn't define us.
Right. Right.
Hopefully that made somewhat sense.
Yeah, I mean, the couples that I've talked to that have figured out how to be in this marriage or a marriage clean and sober, and all the things that you described are pretty normal, in terms of trying to figure it out. And then if somebody does get sober, I mean, like I was married a long time ago, and my ex-husband just was not going to get sober. And there was violence involved. And so, I just finally drew the line, and we did get divorced. But what I'd say is we did have a son together, and Sam is the one who's had substance use disorder. But I was telling somebody the other day that I because we had a son, I stayed obviously in contact with my ex, and eventually, like years later, he did get sober. And I was so glad I was on the other side of forgiving him, because then I could see and experience the man that I always knew was there, but was behind the shadow of his alcoholism.
Yeah.
And I could never have lived with him again, but I'm certainly really grateful that I had the opportunity to see that part and that side of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. It very easily that could have been our path too. It's just Jen was able to figure it out a little bit sooner, and I know everyone has a different path to lead, and some people can figure it out sooner than others, and unfortunately, some people never are able to.
Right.
And yeah, don't have a good outcome typically. I know there's many, not many, but there has been a handful of people that Jen has tried to help, and then she'll find out that that person unfortunately succumbed to alcoholism and passed away.
Yeah. And so how old are your kids now?
My son is 10 and my daughter is 8.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so you're always in the busy time, but I guess now we have transitioned from the busy diaper and they need you for everything time to busy running around to sporting events and practices, recitals and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. Trying to enjoy each phase while we're in it.
Yeah. Do you guys think about, what if one of them or both of them has the disease?
I haven't really put much thought into that yet. I guess it definitely will cross my mind as they get exploring and experimenting more as they become teenagers. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we need to consider, and how to navigate it if it does become an issue. But I can't think of that because they're too cute and fun right now. They don't hate me yet.
Right, yeah. Yeah. No, this is a fun age. It's a super busy age. And so yes, enjoy it because it really does go fast.
But yeah, I mean, it is maybe part of it is I don't want to think about it right now because I know at some point I will have to get there. So it's a good question, but she's probably put more thought into it than I have, but I really haven't. I've tried to do my best to live into the now, and I can barely figure out what's going on next weekend. So, but yeah, if we have to go through a different battle with our kids, then that's what we'll need to do, and we will do our best to support, but not enable, which will be difficult. I think that's safe to say it'll be a lot more difficult coming from the parenting standpoint as opposed to a spouse.
Yeah. Well, my hat's off to you for so many reasons. And I really do appreciate that you are very much in the present at this point. And who knows, what the future holds relative to the kids and all that sort of thing. But I do think that when you've gone through this with the spouse and you've done it the way that you have described today, those are the building blocks for if you need to step up relative to your kids. And you've done it. So
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we probably try to plant that seed a little bit right now, just with how much advertising there is with alcohol, commercialization, or even in animated movies. And kids are smart; they pick up on it, and we don't drink at our place, or we don't really have any alcohol in the house at all. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like it's something that they're commonly around or accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but at least they are aware and tuned into it because, they do have an understanding that we've conveyed the message that it's not a healthy choice for you. It's not good, but it's crazy how much, and I definitely wouldn't realize this if I wasn't with Jen and how she is helping out others. So she's very, very laser focused on it, but I'm just like, wow, it is like almost every other commercial and it's like, yeah, they're really trying to program you from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
What's cool, what's fun. We definitely make it a point to not, yeah, I very rarely drink the way it is, but in front of the kids is basically a game changer, or a deal breaker for me at this point. I'll have an NA beverage every once in a while. My son will be like, "What are you drinking?" I go, "Right here." He goes, "Is that it says alcohol on it?" I go, "It says non-alcohol." There's a difference, but they're paying attention.
They are
So
paying attention.
so we need to do our best to be good role models and help them succeed as best as possible.
Well, I was reminded of this was a number of years ago. I had friends come visit me in Montana and they drank wine. And so I did not know where there was any place to buy wine because I don't drink. And so I had to ask people, where do I go? It was the strangest thing because it just was not on my radar screen at all. And so, I think you're kind of speaking to societally, it's on a lot of radar screens and it's a lot, and it's in the messaging too. But if you're not paying attention, you don't see it. So it's a really interesting thing from that perspective. And when you're raising kids, the awareness around this is really important to understand that, you have the microcosm of the family, and this is the way it is in your family. But outside in the world, whoo, okay.
Yeah, and even, I like to try to be hospitable for anyone. Like I tell my neighbors or family and friends, the door's always open, coffee's always on, but that always used to be like I always felt obligated to keep a fridge in the garage full of beer
Mm-hmm.
because that felt like the neighborly thing to do. And then I guess recently, really probably just this year, I don't have anything in the garage, so if neighbors come over and same when I go to their place, I mean they'll kindly offer and I'll just say I'm good, but it's crazy how ingrained it is into our culture and that
Mm-hmm.
I should even have to feel a sense of guilt that I don't have beer stocked in my garage fridge
Right.
for if the neighbor stops by after work. One thing at a time, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I've dealt through the years because I stopped drinking a long time ago just because,
Yeah.
I didn't need it. And I already had seen plenty of the results of that. But just telling people you don't drink for a while there, it was like, what?
Yeah. What's
Why?
wrong with you? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I remember distinct moments feeling pressured to have a drink. And I was like, well, clearly this isn't my problem.
Yeah, that's your problem, not my problem. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do.
Yeah. We wouldn't be
Yeah,
having the same conversation over Pepsi.
no.
So,
No. Yeah,
yeah.
it's strange in that way. And I know I have some good friends that don't drink and that was their initial thing. Like we would hang out around a bonfire and or wherever it would be, and one of the friends would be like, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Why don't you drink?" He's like,
Hmm.
and you know, some of my friends are bigger guys, and he's just like, "What's it to you? What are you gonna do about it?" He's like, "Lay off me. It's not high school anymore. I don't need to be peer pressured to drink because I'm 40 years old. If I don't want to, I don't want to." So
Hmm.
that was kind of funny to see
Hmm.
because he had enough confidence and but it's fortunately there does appear to be a culture shift and a real transition going. And whenever
Hmm.
I come across an article or I hear something on the radio, I'll try to send it my wife's way as well. But it feels like it just feels like to me it's going to go the way how smoking is now viewed. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be talking about drinking in the same vein as I don't know many people that smoke anymore. And thinking back to when I was young and all the parents smoked and all the kids smoked at parties and in the bars. And I remember when the smoking ban went into effect in bars and like we stink. That's our sweat. We're not covered with cigarette smoke anymore. That's
Mm-hmm.
different, but it's just it takes time. But I can see it happening already, and that's why I'm so excited to for my wife and what she is doing, helping
Mm-hmm.
people out and being on the front end of it, I think is
Mm-hmm.
just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes leadership, like what Jen's doing. And there's more people now that are willing to come out and lead the way, to, for all of us in terms of being present in our lives and not being fragmented by substances and all of the things. And I'm totally in agreement with you that I've watched my own friends and some of the people that I work with, they start with the dry January. And then I'm like, peppering them with a podcast or two, about the effects of alcohol. And I've had somebody come back recently and say, wow, okay, I don't really need to drink. I'm stopping,
Yeah.
except for the occasion, kind of like what you said. So I really do believe that we're more headed in that direction as we, I think, begin to kind of wise up as to what is our life really about.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'm 40, 41. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I feel like I have a better grasp on who I am today than I did, 15 years ago
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't know who I was. I just knew I like to have fun, right?
Right.
I like to have drinks with my friends because that's what I did. But it's exciting and it's also exciting that there are so many more non-alcoholic options now. When I'm on work trips, I will often send my wife a picture of whatever non-alcoholic beer I'm trying at the
Mm-hmm.
restaurant after a day of work, or sometimes it's just a Shirley Temple because I'm like, you know what? Shirley Temple's pretty dang good.
You're right. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for, um, taking the time and, I mean, really seriously taking the time. I mean, time is a very precious commodity. And when you have, 8 and 10-year-olds running around. So thank you for so much of your time, but also thank you for your heart. You're a very thoughtful man, and I appreciate you just being genuine and authentic and sharing your journey and being a part of, I think, kind of a renaissance of not only men, but also women as we kind of figure life out and decide that we're actually pretty darn good without all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And initially, when you had reached out to ask if I'd be a part of it, I think I asked Jen, I go, why do you want to talk to me? Like, I'm not the story. But I guess now that I've had a chance to think about it, and yeah, there are so many people in my shoes that
Mm-hmm.
are probably looking for answers or looking for someone that has also been through the meat grinder, and to let them know that um, don't give up. There's always hope. Yeah, there's going to be some dark times, but I promise you, if you stick with it and work on yourself, and if your loved one, if they can reach the point and get the help and the support that they need,
Mm-hmm.
that you can overcome, and it doesn't have to define you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, honestly, I couldn't have said that better myself. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks a lot. It's been good, and we talk again sometime. Maybe I will recall more. Like I said, I some of those memories are maybe locked away a little bit
Mm-hmm.
deeper, so it takes a little bit of digging back in the attic and dusting off which door open to try to recall some of the not so good times, but knowing that maybe that's what some other people need to hear too, that yeah, there are there's always hope anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more people like us that are the family members that love people than there are people who deal with the alcoholism or substance use disorder. And we so far have been kind of closeted by our own shame and our guilt and the stigma and so on and so forth. And so that's why it's really important for us to tell our stories so that others can see that you can keep a marriage together and move through this and redefine yourself and raise a family and have a life that you love, and there is hope. So that's a major reason why I'm so grateful for you being willing to do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say I'm so grateful for Waylon to be raw and real and share his spouse's perspective with our audience for the first time today. And that takes a lot of courage. He is a man of depth and conviction, and that stick-to-itiveness that fortunately he and Jen, have weathered the storm and are in a fabulous place with their kids and their family. And so, again, deep gratitude, Waylon. And I hope our audience really gleaned a lot from this conversation. I know they did. So take care, everybody.